Here we are on another episode of Tactical Talks. We have Andy Rose with us, which is the architect behind the fantastic Sounders defense. First of all, how are you coming off of a good defensive performance against Portland?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd use the word architect, but appreciate that. Overall, yeah, I thought a really good performance overall from the boys. We went through the film this morning with the team, and to go down there against a team who has scored a lot of goals this season is obviously very dangerous in transition. I was really proud of the group, not just the back four and Steph, but the whole group with how we defended. And there were a few moments in the first half we thought maybe we need to work on Jesus' position a little bit, and we understood obviously Da Costa's really dangerous for them, and that kind of left pocket for them, and how we can negate those passes getting through there. So happened a couple of times in the first half. Those are small details we need to clean up. But overall, to watch the second half play out and us really be the protagonists in the game and pushing the game and searching for that winner and really creating some decent opportunities towards the end there, was really encouraging to see after a long week, a lot of travel, a lot of late nights. Obviously rotated a lot midweek, which I thought helped a few of the boys, come Saturday. Overall, disappointed in the goal we gave up for sure, because we talk a lot about that moment. And it is different playing three and playing four, especially in those moments where you get a sort of prime assist on run from deep. We talk a lot about who we want picking that runner up, where we want to position our centre backs in those moments, and it didn't quite happen as we would have liked. In saying that, it happened a few times during the game where we did find the right solution defensively, and so obviously against good teams, good players, those moments are going to happen. So important how you react to that, and overall we would like that moment back, but really proud of the boys for the performance.
How would you equate for Wednesday's game? I mean, rotation is important, and not just the result, but there is a learning experience and minutes that need to be played for so many of these players. How would you think that this team can take Wednesday's loss at LAFC into a learning lesson, specifically defensively?
Yeah, great lesson. Obviously we're a club and a group that don't like to use excuses for sure, but certainly the preparation for the game wasn't great in terms of flights and arriving day of the game. I felt really sorry for a few of the guys who maybe haven't played a ton of minutes this season and were kind of thrown into a game, with a set of circumstances that weren't ideal for them. So certainly from a coach's standpoint, I look at the performances and include all the lead up as well. And those guys have been training so well. I think I know Brian's mentioned it a lot to the media, and certainly internally we talk about our competition and our depth a lot. And I think that adds over the course of the season when you have a great training environment. I think by the end of the season you've worked up enough minutes for guys who might be needed. We saw last season, John Bell's an amazing example playing in the playoff game against LAFC, and he was a star that day. He was brilliant. And those guys have all earned minutes, Danny Leva, JP, John Bell, obviously. Like, these guys have earned the right to play games. And how that game transpired, particularly in the second half, was obviously frustrating for all of us. I felt we could easily have gone into half-time at 1-1. I think we probably deserved a goal. Obviously, the set-piece opportunities we created were dangerous. And a group on the pitch that particular 11, it's not like they played a ton of minutes in pre-season together. We had Osaze up front, going back to a somewhat variation of a back five. And so there was a lot in the lead up to that game that was a little bit different for the group. And again, although the result was a difficult one to take, particularly the second half, and obviously we knew their threat in transition, I think when you look at the whole week, it would have been great to probably get 6 points out of the week. I think maybe we deserve that if you think, probably could have nicked 3 points against Portland. But when you factor everything in, I was still really proud of that group that went out there and competed and performed against a really tough team in LAFC in a tough environment with a really talented attack. And like you said, it's a great lesson. I'm sure we'll meet them again down the road. And as a coaching staff, lessons for sure, how we manage a 3-game week, 3 away days, a lot of travel, sort of different in MLS. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look at my playing career and see if that ever happened where, 3 consecutive away games, not easy. And so, look, we made the decision to rotate, and, I still feel a lot of the guys turned in performances maybe they're not really happy about, but there's still a lot of good moments.
One of the things that you just mentioned and I wanted to get into was the difference between the 3-man backline and the 4-man backline, or 5-man backline, if you will. It seems like decisions are simpler when you play with 4 in the back, at least in the build out. And I don't know if, obviously in MLS it's important to have versatility and having a couple of formations ready for different games. But what do you feel like with the 4-man backline and the 3-man backline, at least when it comes to build out, are the biggest differences there?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's a ton in how we build out. I'd say we still, even with a 5, if we're talking about from goal kicks, we'll still tend to build, if we play with the back 5, in a 4, and whoever the left wing back is usually gets pushed up. There are definitely, and when we have the ball, not a whole lot has changed. We still like to build with 3 centre backs, so Nuhu being, defending as a left back in the back line of 4. His starting position is maybe a little bit different than when we go to a 5, obviously, and he's more tucked inside, and maybe that's a little bit easier for his transition to then, when we have the ball, he's in kind of the same spot as where we want him building. I would argue the biggest differences are probably more on the defensive side. Specifically with those really dangerous prime assist zone runs that we saw from Portland this past weekend, and obviously we try and exploit with all the time as well with our pocket players or with our number 9 making those runs, and who picks up that space and who tracks those runners. And in a 4, for me, I prefer to keep our 2 centre backs inside the width of the goal, for crossing moments. They're our biggest players, and you don't always want one of them, drifting off into the half space, and then the trickle down effect of them who's picking up in the box. So I'd prefer to keep them and have one of our pivots go and track that runner into the prime assist zone. In a 5, you're kind of, Nuhu or Yaimar in particular playing in those positions, they kind of already absorb those runs, so it's a little bit different. So then the role of the pivot changes slightly. A lot of emphasis and fitness for the wing back, to at times be the highest and widest guy, but then have to really come back around and making sure we're well balanced when in transition. And so I think I played in both as a player. Really enjoyed playing in both. My last couple of years playing as a centre back in Vancouver were predominantly in a 5 and right in the middle of it. So there's a lot of things I'm able to see back there and talk to Jackson and Kim about, in particular JB as well. You with the ball, you're a little bit of a quarterback, but there's a lot of emphasis on you're seeing everything, the whole field, and so the communication. And a lot of it is also, when you talk about build out, what the opposition is presenting you. If they're pressing in 3 and if they're pressing in a 4-4-2, and then what we try and emphasize as much as possible is just really playing in the gaps. Understanding, quickly figuring out what the opposition is doing, and then where the space is and where we can exploit them. What are they giving us? And overall, it's a part of the game that I still think we can develop in. Obviously, in the last couple of years, we've really transitioned into more of a possession-based team. And I thought, I loved watching a lot of the clips back against Portland and some of the wide triangles we were able to form, and Christian's, his ability in kind of this deep lying 6 role now, and his relationship with Obed, and his ability to, in transition moments, put out a lot of fires for us. Obviously, Yaimar and Nuhu are elite in that category as well, and I think part of the reason we're able to play this way and push more numbers forward is because we have that real trust in guys like Yaimar and Nuhu, that in transition moments they're so difficult to beat 1v1, and it's not often you find centre backs who are that good in isolation in wide areas. And so obviously that allows us to be a little bit more, take a little bit more risk going forward, and certainly you've seen with Obed playing a little bit higher up in this last stretch, and so look, it's all connected whether you play a 5 or a 4. I think for me as a coach, the biggest thing is trying to give the team as much clarity as possible in certain moments, what we want the team to look like, and then trusting and working on their reactions as much as possible in training.
I love it. No, thank you. You literally took the questions that I was going to ask you, because it was going to go defensive next, because it did feel like you guys were more compact with the 4, but you painted it perfectly. So I appreciate that. So let's move on into some individual players, and I try not to keep you here too long. What has surprised you, or what is it about Kihei that just fit so perfectly into whether it's the partnership with Yamar or the system? But he just seems to be a guy that just fit right in.
Yeah, incredible. And I obviously remember him from his time with the Sounders, and when I was away playing for other clubs, I would always keep a really close eye on games and results, and was really impressed with Kim a few years ago. And then when the opportunity to sign him again popped up, I studied quite a bit of film of him playing back at home last season. Was immediately really impressed with his athleticism. People think, they look at ages of centre backs, and obviously centre backs maybe have maybe don't hit their peak until later on as opposed to other positions. But I was immediately blown away by his athleticism, his ability to cover space, his reading of the game. Now getting to know him every day and seeing his training habits, he's an incredible example for all of our young players. One of the most professional and dedicated players I've worked with, without a doubt, in terms of body language, in terms of humility. I mean, just absolute top. Really, really love working with him. I think what he did well was maybe didn't come in his peak fitness levels, and obviously our performance staff are fantastic, and he took his time, and it took a couple months for him to really get up to speed, and then we started seeing signs of, wow, how good is this guy on the ball as well, in terms of line breaking passes, in terms of composure, and specifically decision making. Just a really intelligent player. You can tell he's played at a high level for a long time. Absolute pleasure to work with. And obviously it's going to be really nice having Jackson back fit. I've been so proud of his achievements the last couple of years, and working with him every day the last couple of years has been a real joy, and seeing him progress. And it's going to be, really competitive, because we now, and you throw JB into that mix as well, who, whenever we call upon him, turns in great performances. And again, his professionalism in training, his desire to be ready at all times, creates such a great environment for us here. And so all 4 of those guys, I can't speak highly enough of them. And it's going to be, I think they all respect each other a lot. I think there's a real healthy respect and appreciation for the different skill sets they all bring. But like any footballer, you want to play. And so that's where, as coaches, we need to be really smart, intelligent with our decision making, pairings, and against different types of forwards, different types of challenges, who fits best. And those are challenges, for sure look forward to.
Going from a most experienced player to a prospect, and one that seems to be very talented, in Stu Hawkins. What have you seen out of him, and how do you continue to groom him when there's such a limited amount of competitive minutes?
Yeah, it's a great question. One we talk about a lot inside the coach's office, because there's such a belief in Stu here. Just seems to get better and better every single day. I mean, starting to fill out his body type as well, and his skill set is a little different to most young centre backs I've seen, in terms of his, he came to preseason with us and was honestly probably one of the top performers in the whole preseason camp. His willingness to make tough choices on the ball is really impressive. Some of the passes and his vision and some of the gaps he sees are really high level. There's still certain aspects of his game that we're IDPing and working really hard on. His range of passing, the striking of his long balls and how quickly they can get there. He's worked a lot on his left foot. For Defiance, he's doing an incredible job of playing on both sides, sometimes the left, sometimes the right. With our team, it's been, I wish he'd had an opportunity at this point. I really do, because I think he had probably earned that. It's a shame that hasn't really happened yet. Obviously, he comes on and makes his debut against LAFC for the last few minutes, which, I made sure I told him. I texted him the next day just saying, although it was a tough result for us, just make sure you realize what a big moment this is and how proud we are. Your family should be so proud, and you've worked so hard. It's another step for him. It's not, there's going to be so many more moments, but it's tough losing a game like that and being thrown into the fire to reflect and feel good about it. And so he should, because that's been years and years of work, a lot of work from the academy coaches, from the Defiance coaches behind the scenes, and we try and have him in with our sessions as much as possible, because he fits right in. And obviously, to get better now and to really see this level, he needs to be competing and playing in it every single day. And I think he's got a really exciting future. And for him now, it's going to be the reality of professional football is anywhere in the world you go at a high level, there's going to be different options, there's going to be competition, and you need to find small ways of distancing yourself from the next guy. And I'm excited to see him go through that process.
And to end on tactics here, thank you for your time, by the way. If there's one aspect of the defense that maybe hasn't been as good as last season, is set pieces. It seems like there's been a lot of moments where there's been on-mark headers and things of that nature. Tactically, what is it that the team needs to do better to limit that?
Yeah, it's a good point. It's been frustrating because, a couple of direct free kicks that we could have done better on. The corner kick goals we've taken, we've studied ad nauseum, and had really good discussions about our zone, and obviously, our four-man zone, and do you go to a three-man zone in certain cases. A lot of teams, I think the league has just gotten better over time. The delivery every week, we're seeing, whether it's Mihailovic in Colorado or Jack McGlynn in Houston, I feel like every week there's a real specialist on the pitch, which makes those moments that much more crucial. I'd say over the last couple of years, Christian, Yaimar, that near post zone has been really dominant for us and has won a lot of first phases. I'd even argue we've overall done a good job of still winning the first phase. And, obviously I think back to the Charlotte goal was really disappointing. The header, first day of the season, that one was frustrating. That one we'd love to have back. Anything that comes into our zone, we feel really good about our guys winning that initial phase. Now, we probably don't have the biggest team in the world, and so, teaching man marking, and I always joke with Obed, because, he's had some really tough marks, and I always say to him, no matter where you go in the world, you're probably, this is going to be a role for you, and you have to stand tall and be really strong in these moments, and he's grown so much. And I'd say losing Jordan, not having Jordan for a large part so far, has been a really important man marker for us as well. Usually put him on one of their top headers of the ball, and he's done an incredible job since I've been here of taking care of some important players. And it's just something that, during congestion you don't get to work on a whole lot, live. It's something that we've discussed as a coaching staff, is how do we put these guys in more of those situations in a safe way, where you're not putting anybody at too much risk on a match day -1 or anything, but in real ways work on it where there's real pressure. And so we've done more of that lately, and look, we a lot of that comes down to pride, personal pride, and concentration in the moment, and Steph being a leader and Christian being a leader back there, and making sure everybody's body position is correct and switched on, and that we're really hard to beat. Hopefully that's something we can sort out.
And finally, and this is definitely the last one, what does the team have to do defensively to get a good result against Dallas?
Yeah, we went through it this morning, showed 5 or 6 clips of Dallas already, and different type of challenge. Obviously, different type of team than they were last year, and have been really good on the road. I think 12 out of their 16 points so far this season have come on the road, and so it might look a little different to the game we won down there, and so a lot of speed in transition. Anderson Julio is a player I played against and know well from his time at Salt Lake and now at Dallas, and is always a threat in those moments. Musa's movement in the box is very good. He probably could have scored one against us early in the game down there with a little bit of play. We gets in front of Jackson on a cross. Intelligent player. And so, a big part of it is us understanding their travel schedule. They're playing in New York tonight in the Open Cup, so we'll see what kind of lineup they put out. But whoever they put out, really trying to dominate the ball as much as possible and limit their opportunities to get forward. And then our active defending, I'd say, has to be really aware, because I do think we can have a good amount of the ball, similar to the second half in Portland. And then understanding that, similar to Portland as well, they have this real direct vertical threat in transition that can't be ignored. And that's something we speak to our back three about an awful lot. And that really comes down to good communication, good concentration. Obviously, making sure whether it's Christian, Obed, JP, Danny, whoever's kind of in that holding role at the time, also has a good awareness of what's going on, where their playmakers are. And we'll see what they bring with Acosta suspended on yellow cards. We'll see how that changes them. And like always, we need to take a lot of pride in our defending and make sure it's a real collective effort.
Thank you.